if we don't learn how to get out now, and if we don't get out by the end of this at the end of this lifetime, then chances are that that door is going to close. Because what AI does, from my perspective, especially when they're going to, I joke around now that with Elon, we're going to have a chip in the shoulder. So once they start altering human body vehicle more, it will create focus on the left brain. More left brain. More left brain means less ability to access the spiritual side of ourselves, which is more within the right brain.
Hey, Inspire Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. It's John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in to another inspired conversation. My guest today is hard to put in a box because she doesn't operate in boxes. You could call her a teacher, you could call her an author, a speaker, but I would say that she's so much more than that. She is known and has become more known recently because she's not only questioning the nature of our reality, but teaching people how to explore it for themselves and how to leave what we call the construct or the matrix. We're going to dive much deeper with Isabella Greene today. Thank you so much for joining us again.
John, it's wonderful to have you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be a part of your show.
Oh, it's an honor to have you back. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're very busy. You're teaching a lot of people what you have discovered and how they can discover this for themselves. But for those of you who've never heard of you or who only know bits and pieces, haven't seen our first interview, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you became who you are today and doing what you do today?
Well, it's been quite a trip because I started with having abilities and being open in my abilities, and then I fell into the American dream, the American coma for 20 years. And I did everything that's required in that space, corporate job and marriage and you name it. And then I started waking up again and started encountering different techniques and learning different techniques. And because I always had a feeling that what I was living was that something was missing there. And I started discovering more and more about myself and my abilities again. And I remembered, after not remembering that for 20 years, I remembered that I was able to astral project for fun when I was a teenager. And during that time, I learned a lot of different things about the dimensions that are invisible, but they are a part of the earth plane reality. And recently, and then as years progressed, I started questioning, like, what was that all about? What were these dimensions all about? Then I came across an idea that reincarnation is not necessarily been a benevolent process for the humans, and I started questioning that. And then I learned the ancient yogic practice, the Tantric Kriya, Kundalini, Pranayam, the breath work, and the meditative practice that I now teach. And as I progressed in that, I had my first awakening experience that is considered in scriptures and books and yogic teachings. They call it enlightenment, and they stop right there. But I did not know any of that then. I was like, whoa, I just experienced the fabric of reality. How? And I want to know more. And so I did not stop, and I continued. And it brought more and more information and more experiences. And I've been doing these practices for over 10 years now. And then in 2023, I decided to share what I learned what I've figured out. And it turned out in a book. I put a book out, Leaving the Trap, where I humbly just gathered my conclusions and put them in a small book. And turned out that there were other people who did research on the same subject, and there were thousands and thousands of people who wanted to know about this. They were questioning our reality and the whole reincarnation subject, and concepts and teachings around that. And so I started speaking about it, and I started a school where I started teaching these practices. And then I wrote the second book based basically on my conversations with people about this, and the research. And now I am learning more and more. And it became my specialty because I am, through my experiences, and also now through um, looking into materials that others wrote, I am finding more and more information that supports my humble theory that I came up with on my own through my own experiences. And also, I questioned very much my near death experiences, where I did not feel the inspiration when I came back. I felt very duped when I came back because I was begging the being that showed up during that near death experience to keep me where I was at. To I did not want to go back to Earth. I wanted to stay in that state of blissfulness that I experienced after my body temporarily perished. But then I was sent back under the pretense that my experience on Earth was not good enough, and I had to go and do better. And well, I guess I am doing better in the long run. But at that time, I was very, very much. I felt very duped that this happened. And so I started looking
Hmm.
into near death experiences, and I encountered a number of stories of others who felt the same way, who felt that there was a total hoax, that there was a total um, action against their will, against their wishes, and the fact that they were sent back to Earth during the near death experiences. Everyone, every single person did not want to go back to Earth, but we were all forced to. And the general idea, the general accepted narrative is that, wow, that was so beautiful, and we were enlightened by the near death experience, and we um, came back inspired and to do, I don't know, to do other things and do better. And yeah, it does happen. But there are so many voices that I'm encountering now saying, you know what, that was a total BS. I did not buy into this at all, and I did not want to be back here on Earth, but I was forced to. And these stories are not promoted. These stories are not really on the NDE channels, the because that's not the narrative that the system wants us to really hear, I think.
When you dive into the more Eastern spiritual traditions, the idea of the Maya, the illusion, this world being an illusion, this is ancient, right? This is not new, but it didn't really break through into our Western world. I want to say probably until maybe 25 years ago, and pop culture, movies like The Matrix, this idea where it showed us a
Yeah.
technological version, right? A technological simulation. So here we are. I want to say a few years into this becoming a very broad discussion. Millions of people following along, millions of people exploring, right? And I want to say more than ever, feeling that this world and what we call real most definitely is not real in the way that we would, interpret reality. But then there is this threshold where you and others, and I count myself in this group, we say yes, but as you leave this body, it doesn't stop. The illusion
Yeah.
or the simulation or the construct does not stop. So now the question is, how far does it go, who is behind it, and what is beyond it, right? And these are the subjects really that capture people's imagination, and they stay up all night and they go down the rabbit hole. You've written Leaving the Trap and Beyond the Trap, two really, really wonderfully written book, concise, to the point, easy to read, but you could explore them for months and years. Where do you stand today on these questions? You know, what is the beyond, who is behind it, and what else is there?
All right. Well, we got about a 3-hour discussion here based on this one question. All right. So, where do we begin with this whole conversation about how it started, what's beyond, and who runs it? I have been recently very completely fascinated by the Nag Hammadi texts that were discovered in 1945 there,
Mm-hmm.
Nag Hammadi scriptures, and they are the Gnostic scriptures that were written according to some assumptions, let's just say, of the present day sciences. They were written somewhere between the 2nd and the 4th century CE, which is a while ago, and they had to be hidden because of the material that's within them. I did not know these books existed. I did not base any of my own conclusions on any scriptures, but as people started pointing out different materials to me, I started discovering that there is a lot of information that supports my theories that I came up with based on my own exploration. And I want to give you a little quote right here. So, uh, the quote from the Nag Hammadi scriptures, from the text on the origin of the world, describes, or not the quote, this text on the origin of the world describes the creation of the realms around Earth plane, and there are 7 of them that are that appear or being created at the beginning, and they are filled with beautiful heavenly realities that people talk about, I think, in the near death experiences. And then on top of that, and so each one of them received a ruler, which was a child, offspring of the guy who came up with this idea, the architect, let's just say. And David Icke and the Gnostic scriptures call him the Yaldabaoth. And not only did he create the heavenly realms that stretch up into invisible realm, right, as it says right here, right? So that's our astral dimension. He also created armies of divine, lordly, angelic, and archangelic powers, myriads without number, so they might serve them. Serve them and not humanity. And then it says, after the heavens, their powers and their entire governments were established, blah, 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 continues on, right? So after they establish the powers, the realms, and their governments, right? So isn't this phenomenal that, well, in that age or at that time, whoever wrote that is describing this process of installing, quite literally installing the if we take the theory that it's a simulation, installing the simulation around Earth plane, or installing the astral realm around Earth plane. And so we have written confirmation in the Nag Hammadi text. There are at least 7 dimensions. And then there's more information about it stretching into the 8th dimension. And then we have some people who astral project and talk about dimensions past these 7 and 8. And Darius Wright talks about 12 dimensions of the matrix that he's been astral projecting into. And so it And then there's a firmament. There's a firmament. And he mentioned that there's a firmament. I have seen the firmament. You literally reach the point where you hit the ceiling, and it's like an electric grid. It's like electric fence that you can't get through. And more people are talking about this. So we have a system around this planet that encompasses non-physical dimensions. One of or more of these, few of these dimensions, let's just say, encompass the afterlife and the pre-birth dimension. And we now, I think, need to start talking about the pre-birth dimension, because it could be a little different than the afterlife dimension. And the beings that run that, according to the Nag Hammadi scriptures, they are animals. That's what the scriptures say. They say that they are they have human bodies and heads of animals, and they require, or back in the day when they were dwelling and interacting with humans closer than through technology or projection, holographic projections and stuff, they required physical sacrifices of animals to eat. And they required also the energy that both animals and humans produce when they suffer. So it's an interesting structure, interesting, complex system. And the system was perfected to the point that it is being supported in from all directions in our everyday experience. All or majority of the teachings, spiritual teachings, encompass the ideas that support this system. And we have been trained from day one to follow the orders of these beings without question, and to believe the ideas that help them sustain the system, govern it the way they prefer, and get the sustenance that they like. So I think that pretty much covers who created, how and when. We don't know when, but when. I had a download a vision in one of my experience during one of my experiences, that we had three different cycles of history on this planet, and that we're now in the third cycle. Previous cycles were before the flood, and so this cycle started anew, and the matrix was installed, and the human body vehicle that we have right now, that has all of the abilities disconnected, but we still carry the junk DNA where the abilities are hidden, that's a creation for the system that is running the third cycle of human reality or earth plane history. So this is a little bit of the background that I'm aware of to this day. And reading the scriptures, the Nag Hammadi scriptures, and just having these confirmations, that blows my mind. It just blows my mind when I read it, and I get what they're saying, because I've seen it, I've known it, but I did not know that anyone else wrote about this. And now, so the Nag Hammadi scriptures support. But I want to mention this, that as all of the teachings have been influenced by these beings significantly, there are parts of the Nag Hammadi text that are accurate from my perspective, and there are parts that are supporting the agenda. And so we need to be very vigilant. We need to be very aware when we read anything, any teachings that are present, especially the New Age teachings. We need to keep in mind the agenda of the handlers, and in the Nag Hammadi scriptures, they're called the rulers, to be able to tell the difference between what is written out of beliefs that support the agenda, very often unknowingly so, um, and what is written based on a person's or the being's awareness of the actual truth.
You know, I think it's also, we're speaking, you and I both live in a Western world, a very, Christianized world, if you will, to a large degree, where even reincarnation was taken out of the education or belief system, and so now you have this very sort of two-dimensional way of looking at it, even less knowledge, where you come here, and you hope to live a good life and serve God, the God of this world, might we say. And if you do it right and obey and get it all right, then you get a place in heaven, which is the next realm, if you will. And of course, Christians experience NDEs. And now a lot of Christians also sort of go, well, I kind of remember a past life. So, this is seeping through. But what you and I and now many others are talking about is what might be called the reincarnation trap. And we've talked about this in our previous interview. But can you quickly, sort of recap what is the purpose of reincarnation, coming back into a human body in this realm?
Well, the idea is to maintain the system. They need the population to continue feeding them with energy that we produce during suffering, and that we produce just by definition because our body comes equipped with emotions. Our realities are not perfect, far from perfect, and so suffering is a common state of being. And there are different types of illusion, there are different types of energies that humans produce that feed the beings who need this energy. And I don't believe that there are all that many of these beings that are actually in existence. I believe that there is a simulation that was created that is running this program, and so they're getting significant amount of that loosh. And so when the human being goes back, or passes, when a human being passes away and goes into the afterlife dimension, so the soul leaves the body. If you leave the body slowly like a mist and lift out of the body, and there's Kirlian photography that has captured that, and it looks like a little vapor that's like lifting out of the, you land straight in the astral dimensions, and you are pulled through the tunnel of white light into the afterlife dimension. And there you are presented with the idea that you are imperfect and that you need to go back to earth and suffer more. And so there is, I think that there is a certain level of greed that is running this whole, behind this whole system, because how much more energy do they need? The population continues to grow. They keep, I believe that they keep recruiting souls that are not aware of what's going on here into earth plane, or even those who are aware think that oh, I can get out. Yeah, right, until they get in and get behind that electric fence right here. So they keep recruiting more and more. We're getting more and more population here, not to mention the non-player characters that have been produced in masses too, which all are all also equipped with physical bodies, and that means physical suffering, and that means emotions, and that means more loosh for the handlers too. And so I think the greed is what's running the program, same as what we see here on earth with money. For the handlers, I believe that it's the greed of getting more, give me more of that energy, more, we need more people, and we can't let anyone go. we can't let go of the ones that are already here, but the ones who have been here for centuries, coming back through the cycles of reincarnation, haven't been told that they need to go back and work out their karma and on and on. I think that the quality of lush they produce diminishes because they're not so fresh anymore, let's just say. And so that's why I
Hmm.
think they need new resources from outside of the system that are being recruited to take human incarnations. And the process of reincarnation assures that the person agrees to suffer under the pretense, under being um, conditioned to believe that that's what they're going to Earth for. So it's like one hand supports the other very clearly right here.
Speaking of the Gnostic texts found in Nag Hammadi, part of the Gnostic texts is the explanation that what we're seeing here, is a what they call a bad copy of the real thing. In your exploration, beyond this ceiling, the firmament, the electric fence, beyond that, have you discovered any kind of physicality or something that people call prime earth or prime reality?
Yeah, and this is the question that I get a lot, but I have not seen the prime reality. I have seen in deep meditations when I zoom out completely and I'm able to look back, I can see the firmament and I can see the layers underneath it, and I can see our planet within. And sometimes I'm able to see like a glowing ball of energy, which feels like our planet, that is outside of that entire structure. But I have not explored what that is. It just looked like it was a perfect place. It looked like um, it was surrounded by the natural light, and it felt very like tuning into it. It felt very peaceful and very calm, and it was literally outside of that structure. But if you ask me more and on, oh, do I know if that's prime earth, or do I know if that's what they created the simulation of or a facsimile copy of, I can't answer that because I have never really gone to explore that. What I have been seeing in session, even in private sessions lately, was that us as multidimensional beings, we have representation in realities outside of the dimensions of the matrix, and a similar representation within the realities of the matrix. For example, I would trace the flow of the soul of the client that I'm working with, and I would see from the perspective outside of dimensions of the matrix, I would see, looking back, I would see that there is a part of them right here in light form in a different dimension, and there is another one, and then there'll be that firmament, and then the structures of these layers. And let's say there is a Arcturian aspect, or I don't know, Cassiopeian aspect of them, as and they would be presented as ascended. There's an ascended aspect of that soul outside right here in this dimension, and then right here, and then within the bubble there'll be a counterpart, also a Cassiopeian aspect, also an Arcturian aspect, but linked to the simulation, within the simulation, and serving the whole, or working with the whole system. And that started coming in just recently when I started seeing the difference. And they literally would say, because I'm able to connect with these aspects, and they would literally say, let's say a Cassiopeian aspect would say, we are from the perspective of the human reality, we are in the reality that's ascended or beyond, but we also have an aspect within the ninth dimension that is within the structures of the simulate of the construct. And the Arcturian will be like, oh, and we are the I don't know, ninth dimensional or seventh dimensional within, and it's the same soul. It's a continuation of that flow of the soul. And then we have a human, which is on third dimensional within physicality. So it's a very complex system, very complex system, way beyond my pay grade, way beyond uh, my ability to fully uh, visualize it or fully comprehend it. But I'm just reporting the findings that are coming in that I'm able to observe.
You know, it's interesting because when you go into, maybe you can call it infinity, you know, we call it the void. The name, no name really describes it accurately, but when you go there, there's only so much explanation you can bring back into words. You know, there's only so many
Yeah.
words that you can use to describe something that's not describable. But what I've wondered lately is, as we are expanding and more people are expanding their awareness and are realizing what you talk about, an argument that's been coming back often is, well, you know, so what are you going to do if you're out there in the void outside of the simulation? There's no physicality, there's no point, there's no purpose, there's no experience. And I think this could be a last straw manipulation tactic, sort of to keep people here and go, what are you going to do? There's nothing there. There's nothing anymore. What is your view on this? And could this maybe also be a way of keeping people from going through this final layer barrier and experience what lies beyond it?
Well, we have all kinds of tactics running on this planet, and the idea that humans are starting to learn how to reawaken their abilities, upgrade their DNA themselves through Kundalini awakening, and open the exit points and jump out of the simulation. That reached the awareness of the powers that are running the show here. And there are all kinds of disinformation campaigns pouring onto the internet through the most uh, very often through the people who wholeheartedly believe that what they are delivering is correct. But there is a very strong campaign to counteract the loss of the uh, power for the batteries that we are, right? The source of that energy, the loosh. So whatever is being said about the void, that most likely is the attempt to keep people in contraction in this physicality without trying. um, but if you have experienced it, if you just disregard all that, stop listening, disregard, and do the practices to experience it firsthand, you will know that all of that is nonsense. Because what you experience is the state of returning home. You literally are home,
Mhm.
and you are that love. You are all the knowledge. You are all there is. You are the prime reality, the base reality. That's what happens when you rip through these simulations and the layers of disinformation and confusion and uh, scare tactics and everything, and you literally have an experience. One experience will change a person's life. And in the yogic traditions, in the books, in the scriptures, this is called enlightenment. And they very often just stop. Oh my God, I had just experienced God. I just experienced the fabric of reality. I was it. I saw that I was a part of everything. I felt it. That's it. I'm now going to sit here and present myself as an enlightened being, and everyone has to listen to what I have to say. So that's been going on for forever. But why don't you continue? Why don't we continue? That first experience will blow your mind, change your life, but you can have more experiences. You can become accustomed to that state of being, and then you literally are no longer subject to confusion. It makes it much easier to deal with human reality when you have paved your way into the fabric of everything and became it and experienced yourself as it. And then you come back here, you're in a game. It's just like you're inside a video game. And you are an outsider observing that. So it gives you a whole different human experience.
That is literally um, how I experienced it, and I'm experiencing it. Is that beyond the simulation, beyond the construct, if you will, and we use terminology that sort of we can understand. I don't know if that's the right term, anyways, but there are no rules, and sort of there is no more of this karmic intertwined entanglement. It is the perfect expression of free will, if you will, and you can decide on whatever you want to decide. There are no limits. Versus in this construct, there's always, there's this rule, and then you have to go back and do this, and you have to rectify this, and it's a never ending cycle, like Isabella says, for a reason. Now you've taken your own advice, and you've kept exploring, and now you're literally helping others to learn how to do that. Can you talk a little bit about the process as much as you can, and what this Kundalini awakening that so many are scared of and call demonic really means?
Yeah, and we need to be careful here because in our first interview we joked about that Kundalini awakening is demonic, but there were a lot of people who took it literally. They were literally writing to me saying, "You said that it is demonic. You said that it is this and that." It was like we were joking. We were joking. That is a part of disinformation campaign because the Kundalini awakening burns away the filters that have been deliberately installed within the human brain computer, if you wish, the inhibitors that are there that very often during significant brain trauma get removed. But I'm not suggesting that people should go and get hit on the head really hard with a 2x4. Have a Kundalini awakening. It will do the same thing. It will give you access to abilities beyond your wildest imagination within your own comfort zone too. And so the Kundalini awakening not only helps us to develop the skill to go out of body at will, uh, go like a rocket out of the top of our heads and blast through the firmament that each one of us has. The crown centers are not open in majority of the population, and then we have the whole auric field around us that is a part of our structure. And so when you have the Kundalini awakening, you break through any sort of barriers, energetic limitations that you might have, but you also reawaken your abilities. And so it's a very powerful process. It's not a walk in the park. It comes with side effects and uncomfortable experiences, and it's important to prepare. But you don't need to prepare hair for 30 years of sitting in the cave in Tibet, like we're being taught. And it definitely is nothing bad, because it is your own life force. Your own life force that is concentrated in the concentrated form that is, in majority of the population, is sitting in the root center. And when we do the practices of breath work and nighttime meditation, we shake that energy out of the root center, send it up the into to light up the upper centers, burn away the filters, and also open the exit point. And so when that Kundalini energy moves and the exit point opens up, it feels like an explosion that went off inside your mind, inside your head. Very often you start having a sensation or experience that you're dissolving into a blast of light. A lot of people that are in my group, a lot of people that are my students, are talking about from the chest and up just dissolving. When I felt, when this happened to me the first time, I literally felt that every cell of my being just turned into these blinding blast of light, like you have a an explosion, a quantum explosion within your um, in the visual. You will feel it physically, but you also observe it from the inner vision, and then it moves into the upper centers and you are blinded, and then after that you're completely gone. You have no idea what's going on with your body. You have no idea about anything human any longer. You experience yourself as the creator, as the source energy, as God. And that's what people were referring in yogic books, and including in Yogananda's book. He was saying that he got to experience God. He did experience God
The
in that
cosmic
way,
lover.
and so can you.
The cosmic lover. The Paramahansa called it in the book.
Yeah, and it does feel that, because simultaneously with this process, you experience yourself as the state of the most powerful unconditional love, compassion, peace, everything that we beg for and have here, get just little crumbs of it here within our human experience. I have to meditate for hours to get just a little bit of that feeling. Once you've blasted through all of the blockages, we are it. And we know that we don't need to go through working out karma, because karma is an artificial construct to keep humans suffering and also to keep humans under control. I have not read the literature from the traditional teachings, Indian teachings, but I was told by one of my clients that there is a book that was written in the third century, something something, and that book um, talks about one of the rulers of humanity, um, the non-physical rulers of humanity. I mean, were who wanted to control, because they were not able to control the revolts against them, and that they came up with the idea of karma, and that supposedly that's actually, you can find that somewhere in the old teachings from India. um, I don't know more about that, but I know that in the talking about the Christian tradition, I know, and I heard that from Paul Wallace and his work, his book, um, Escaping from Eden. He wrote that in the book of Genesis and in the Old Testament, there are references to those who were trying to oppose the forces that were governing humanity, the non-human forces that were governing humanity as gods. And so these forces were that these people or these minds were significantly punished for trying to do so. So there's another reference to people figuring out, we don't want to serve these animal headed gods, or these ones that demand sacrifice of our firstborn, or our best cattle, or our virgins, or any of that. We don't want to serve them, but they were very severely punished. And so it is possible that the same phenomenon, I'm just theorizing right here, but it is possible that the same phenomenon happened in India as well, because everywhere, in all traditions, in all traditions, we have seven beings showing up to bring the teachings to the humans and to govern the humans as if it was a good thing. But here in the Nag Hammadi scriptures, they talk about that there were seven beings and they created seven realms, and they were all serving the simulation or the entrapment system for the humans. So I think a lot of research is in order here, or we can just go and stop teasing and um, challenging the left brain, because the left brain doesn't get it no matter how much you know. Just practice, do the practices, enter the space outside of the simulation, the space within the absolute reality, and then you don't need to know any of this. You just find that contentment that is our true nature.
I wanted to um, talk about my current perception of the time that we live in and what you teach and how it pertains to the next years, especially with regard to the development of AI going so fast. And my current theory or my perspective is that as so many people, and many more than ever before, are exploring what you talk about, practically actually exploring it, that the AI agenda is being even more accelerated so as to bring about this fusion of our current biology with artificial intelligence and basically inhibit or prohibit us from doing or doing these things or making it nearly impossible. Do you feel like we are in a time
Yeah.
crunch for those who really wish to learn this?
I feel that the reason that this information came out, and there were few voices before, but they kind of went unnoticed. And then in 2023, and I've known this for years. I had my regression where I had the confirmation that afterlife is a trap in 2016, I think, and I didn't feel like I need to write a book. But in 2023, I had this intuitive urgency. It was like, you have to put this out now. And regardless of the fact that I was kind of questioning, it's like, no one's going to believe it or whatever. But the feeling was really strong. The feeling was like, you need to put this out now. When I did, and the whole wave of information came together. All of these voices, they were disjointed before. We have Howdy Makovsky, we have David Icke talking about this, we have other speakers and authors talking about this, but somewhere there were just a singular voice that majority of the population didn't notice. But since 2023, the information kind of all came together, and now people are putting the whole thing together. And I think that those who are ready are drawn to this information because there is an intuitive awareness that if we don't train now, if we don't learn how to get out now, and if we don't get out by the end of this, at the end of this lifetime, then chances are that that door is going to close. Because what AI does, and my from my perspective, especially when they're going to, I joke around now that with Elon, we're going to have a chip in the shoulder, not like a chip on the
Yeah,
shoulder, chip in the shoulder. So
indeed.
once they start altering human body vehicle more, it will create focus on the left brain. More left brain means less ability to access the spiritual side of ourselves, which is more within the right brain. Intuitive knowing. It literally makes a human like a machine that does not have access to what's within our DNA, within our right brain capacities. And we'll probably have genius discoveries and genius left brain people and science and all that, but it does not allow us to expand into the natural abilities that have been removed originally. And I think once we start getting, or once they start forcing that onto onto humanity, then we're going to have a less chance to tap into our supernatural, so-called supernatural abilities. That seems um, to me, that seems that's what's happening logically with the AI infusions and stuff. So the time, or the window, the frame of this, and how it all developed in 2 years, from between 2023 2025 right now, the number of people who became aware of this information and who recognized on the soul level that they don't want to be a part of this structure, they don't want to be feeding, or they don't want to be batteries for the system, and they want to exit, um, is incredible. It's mind-blowing. Truly, it's being suppressed all over, but the number of people in awareness is staggering. And so the I think now is the time to do that, before the body modifications become, or before they might become a requirement, or something that we unavoidable for the humans. And they're probably, I just got a visual that they're probably going to start microchipping the newborns that don't, like in hospitals where the mother wouldn't even have an idea that was happening, or you just sign some form to have a baby, and if you don't sign, then you cannot be admitted into hospital or whatever. I don't know where this came from. I just had this download. So if that happens, that's it. That human being is literally cut off from the ability of returning into the spiritual realm that we belong to, not where we're entrapped in right now.
Isabella, I think unfortunately you received a memory, not a vision of the future. I think it's already happening. Might not be happening on a full scale, but it is definitely already happening. We have some confirmation of that. That I think, uh, both from an intuitive level and from a research level, you have a sense of urgency. We have a sense of urgency. And almost all the others who speak about these things have the same sense of urgency. It's not fear, it's just a knowing that there is a window. And this window we can use to do something amazing and literally altering, or we can just live through it and it will close and it will be that much harder after that. For those who are interested in learning beyond, just understanding it on a mental level, but actually experiencing it, where can they connect with you? Where can they learn from you? What is happening in your world in terms of seminars and teachings? How can people connect with you?
I have created a platform where I offer everything that I know. Literally, as I learn something new, I immediately bring this to the people. I am in the work in progress. I am finding out new information, and I am constantly contributing that to those who want to know. So I have opened an online platform, an online school that is called The Void Academy, and the website is thevoidacademy.net. And I have put together the course there, How to Exit Reincarnation course, that consists 3 workshops that I taught. And you can access all of the information that I have. There are online classes now. There are replays of a couple of classes. A couple of classes are coming up that people can sign up for that are live. We sit down and I teach live, and people can type in their questions, and I answer their questions to the best of my ability. And then there is a replay available for those who miss these classes. I am now preparing the second course that would have more information, and I am offering an in-person event, in-person workshop that will be in June in Sedona, Arizona. And it's always a very uplifting experience when we all gather and have this group of like-minded people. So that's coming in on June 28th. And I will have a practitioner there in parallel. It will be an advanced level workshop, and there'll be a practitioner there who, along with myself, will teach the ability I call it the third eye training, but she's teaching the original sight modality that I think you can see some of that in the documentary Superhuman, where kids are running around with the mask on, but they can see and they can read. And so she teaches this, and I wanted to bring her into my workshop to help people tap into their third eye abilities. Of course, not everyone will have their third eye awakened instantly in the workshop, but at least they will have the tools, I think. And I'm teaching an advanced level for those who have been following, already doing the practices on June 28th. So there will be more classes, there will be more offerings. I create these offerings based on what I know and based on demand, what people are asking for. I put that on that website. So if they're going to just go and check out thevoidacademy.net, they're going to find information there. It's not to overload the left brain. We're not trying to overload the left brain with a ton of information, because then it just keeps you running in circles and having more questions and more confusion. What I teach is very straight and to the point and very basic. And this is why we don't have a million classes on the website. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. What your left brain knows is irrelevant. Learn the core practices and start practicing and start having experiences. That's the point. And before you do that, be aware of what you might expect as side effects that are physical and emotional and mental side effects, and I cover all that. And then know the difference between astral projecting and going into the void. And I'm teaching this class actually next week. So we got things that are hands-on within the voidacademy.net. And also the great development that is very exciting is that my books are getting translated by people who I don't know. They just send me translations of my books. And so I got an Italian translation. I got a translation of my books into Spanish. And I am now preparing the audiobooks that will be available through my website instead of through Amazon, where not everyone has access to Amazon, especially in Spanish speaking countries. So I will have audio books available in English and Spanish and Italian. And if I get more translations that just come in out of nowhere, I will include them as well. And so I'm creating this so that people will be able to gain access to the books as well in audio format.
That's fantastic. And, to our viewers, what I would say is there's only so much you can read about water. At some point, you got to jump into it to experience it. And so I would encourage you to read the books, really, Leaving the Trap and Beyond the Trap. They're really digestible to read. The chapters. I love picking them up every now and then, just open them, because it sort of almost always has a synchronistic feel for me. And then check out thevoidacademy.net. Isabella Greene, it's a great pleasure. I could go on and on with you here, but I think we should do this again in the near future and expand deeper. Thank you so much for your time, for everything you do. An honor and a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show. And yes, as we meet again and again, I bring more information, because information continuously is coming in and my awareness continues to expand. Same as with everyone else, that when you focus on something that you want to know, somehow miraculously you start receiving the knowledge that you are seeking, and it works for everyone the same way. And so I would like to leave the audience with the message that we're not helpless here. We are in charge of our experience. We're in charge of our reality. And we can pave the way out of any structure that we don't like. And we can make our everyday life within the structure, because we're already in it, make that better through the same practices. The same practices help you improve your health, improve your well-being, give you that inner peace, allow you to feel whole again. Because once you've experienced that one time, you will know, you will live it, you will live that sense that nothing is lacking. And so you're not a subject to being influenced by the system so much. You will have your own spiritual maturity and also the ease of experience within the human realm. And that is something that I wish for everyone to gain access to. And that gives you the sense of freedom. As much as we are within the entrapment system, there are certain freedoms that we can develop and access, and then access the ultimate freedom of jumping out of this whole popsicle stand. So I would like to leave everyone with this message. Hopefully you find that empowering for you.
Thank you, Isabella. I think it's the most important message you could share with people. Empowering, and inspiring for me too. So thank you so much for that. Inspire Tribe, thank you for being here with us. We love you, we appreciate you, and we will be back with you again very, very soon.